Well, joining me now to discuss is managing editor at the Australian, Darren Davidson, and Radio 2CC host Stephen Senatiempo. Welcome, gents. Darren, it just felt like an odd format to me. You know, we're in the business end of the campaign here, and I was watching it, and I just felt a bit confused and overwhelmed, to be honest.
Agree. I think the comparison you made there to Sky is interesting, because I think the reason the Sky debates were quite successful is because you treat the viewers like participants, not spectators. And your point about the nine talent is absolutely true. There's outstanding journalists and commentators there. But great debates need a conductor, not a jazz ensemble. And that's kind of how it felt. It was kind of meandering and all over the place. It lacked clarity and confusion. And without someone kind of managing the rhythm and the tempo, the performance just becomes kind of noise, even if the players are world class. So, you know, what you need is audiences want clarity, and give them one referee, two players, and enough space for, you know, conflict and tension, and you know, that usually works as a formula. But they got it badly wrong, and that, you know, brand promotion is all well and good. You know, that's definitely important. But that wall of logos just looked bizarre. I mean, they didn't really look like they, you know, put any effort into that whatsoever. It was really, really confusing.
No, shove it down your throat is what it seemed like. And Stephen, it's not like they haven't had a long time to nut this out and get it down pat. And what I don't understand is that they could have looked at any of the debates, the presidential debates that happened during the presidential campaign in the US, and generally you have either one or two people, the top talent at the network, who pepper the leaders with questions and make sure they're enforced. And there's a reason you have one or two there, because it's much easier to handle.
Yeah, look, I disagree with both of you. I think the format was great, and I think the fact that we've had three different formats so far over these debates has been a plus. It's allowed voters to actually see a different aspect of the leaders in each case. You know, the Sky News People's Forum is one thing, and that's great that we have voters asking the questions that are important to them. But I think we also do need the expert commentators putting questions to the leaders that the average punter might not think of. And I got full respect for all four people on that panel. And I think the ones that really let us down are the two leaders, not the journos and not the format. So, and I'm all for shameless self-promotion. I mean, if I do an outside broadcast, there's plenty of 2CC logos everywhere, so I got no problem with the logos either.
Yeah, well, at least you wouldn't have 17 different logos behind you, I suppose. Now, on Monday, it was Big News Day, or at least a big news night after the Vatican announced the death of Pope Francis, aged 88. TV news bulletins were thrown out the window to make way for live coverage. My own show here on Sky News, The Late Debate, was canned to take the breaking news, and my thoughts go out to all the producers who worked tirelessly all day to put together TV programs that never went to air. But in the world of live news, that's just how things roll. You have to adapt to what's happening around you. Apart from at the ABC, apparently, where they decided Pope Francis's cause of death 7 hours ahead of the Vatican officially releasing the details. Credit to Seven's Rob McKnight for picking up on this.
At 9:15 p.m, the ABC aired a repeat of Compass, one which focused on the life and legacy of the Pope. A special introduction was added to the start of the program by former host and the host of this special, Geraldine Doogue. But the introduction made a false claim about the Pope's death.
The Vatican has announced that at the age of 88, Pope Francis has died due to complications with pneumonia.
But that's not what the Pope died of. In fact, Pope Francis died of a stroke followed by a coma and heart failure. Realising the mistake, the episode was later recut, removing the incorrect information for iView.
The Vatican has announced that at the age of 88, Pope Francis has died. So what legacy will he leave the world?
The ABC told McKnight that they amended it as more details came to light. More like any details came to light. Stephen, it's a strange one, isn't it? You know, I understand that they probably had this thing in the bag ready to go, as all the networks did. They all had content that was made, as you know, newspapers have obituaries ready to go when someone dies, because the last thing you want to happen is to end up with a major breaking news event and you don't have any footage to run. So they all do it. But the ABC took the extraordinary step of supposing what he would have already died from and then broadcasting that. I mean, this is simple stuff that you think they'd pick up on before they put it to air.
Yeah, it really is simple stuff. Look, and the only allowance I'll make is that, look, we knew the Pope had been sick for quite some time and he had pneumonia, and most people were expecting that he probably was going to pass away from that. But when you're an organisation that is run on a $1.1 billion a year of taxpayers' money, and you've got something in the vicinity of 1,000 journos to call on, you should have the resources to get it right when you actually go to air. And I don't care how long you've had it in the can, editing these things in the modern day is pretty easy. So they should have got it right before they went to air. But you know, are we surprised by this? This is the ABC. This is their MO these days.
Indeed, and look, I think there is more acceptance and allowance of small mistakes being made these days, Darren, because we know that newsrooms are under more pressure than they've ever been. They have less resources than they've ever had. But the ABC is well funded by the taxpayer, and of all the newsrooms in the country, you would think the ABC would have the resources to find these things and identify them before they put stuff to air, particularly when you're talking about one of the biggest stories that has broken this year. Accuracy is still a virtue.
Absolutely agree. I mean, breaking news is not about being first, it's about being right, especially when you're covering a news event of global significance. Otherwise, the rush to be early often becomes the rush to kind of walk things back. Look, you're absolutely right about the digital 24/7, intensely fast news cycle that we work in. It does put pressure on newsrooms, which are already, under constrained by resources and other limitations. And if you don't get there first, often you might not get the majority of the online audience that gets referred to you by search engines such as Google. So the way that the digital ecosystem works is such that if you're not first, you can be penalised by that in terms of traffic and things like that. So I totally get why it's become even more important to get there first, but it's more important to get it right. And unless the ABC's editorial desk has a direct line to St. Peter, I think they're better off just waiting for Rome.
Well, they may well do. You never know what the ABC can do. But I'm just interested very quickly, though, Darren, on your thoughts on what that does to news in general. Because I know, in digital newsrooms, there is a drive now that you have to be first because readers expect it and you want the algorithms to work in your favour. But I'm not sure that overall that is good for news. Agree.
It's not good for news, and that's why Sky's got a subscription model. So has the Australian, where I work. So if you've got an audience that's highly engaged, that's paying for your content and coming back time and time again by appointment, then there's less reliance on kind of digital flyby traffic that is of less value. But for those publishers that call up in that race for digital traffic, and it's important to everybody, including models like that the Australian has and Sky has, then it really is important to get there pretty quickly if you can. But obviously, reputation is more important. And if you get something wrong, the cost to both the journalist and the newsroom and the brand can be really, really harmful. So, we're all human, we all make mistakes, and I totally get that. And I've made mistakes in my career, but it is, as I said before, it's more important to be right than first.
You're right, and I'll say, of course, I've made mistakes too there, but for the grace of God go I. But while we're talking about the ABC's Compass program, they had a ripper episode on Sunday night, Easter Sunday, of course, about a supposedly brand new religion called creation. Take a look.
I really wanted to make something that was robust and bigger than me, but I only started thinking I might as well start a religion when Trump stood for election. Because I thought if you can get elected as a president of the United States, then I can found my own religion.
Creation, an artwork in the form of a queer, insurrectionary, science fiction, climate change religion.
It's triumphant, it's jubilant, it's sorrowful.
To be honest, it was a bit of a joke. A kind of a finger up to the establishment. It has become something completely different and offering, I guess, our idea of a better way.
A queer climate change religion that has, according to the ABC, become, quote, a serious source of spiritual solace and community for its followers. Well, I find solace in the bottom of a nice bottle of red, but to each his own, I guess. I expect next week they'll feature an episode on the flying spaghetti monster. And whatever, the joke is that the ABC thinks that this is even worth broadcasting. But do you think they'd broadcast such a thing during Ramadan? Holy Week, the most sacred time of year for Christians, and Easter Sunday, the day of Jesus' resurrection, is perfectly fine for the ABC to effectively lampoon religion. And as far as I'm concerned, you should be able to do that. But the point is, they're happy to do it during Christian celebrations. They're not so brave to give other religions the same treatment. And that is the issue here, Stephen. We know that this only happens to Christians. Again, I make the point, I have no problem with religions being lampooned and criticised and satirised. Everything should be up for criticism and debate and jokes. But it's always Christianity. They're not so brave when it comes to any other religion.
Well, absolutely right. And that's, again, typical of the ABC. But look, I think there should be a level of respect, too, for other people's religions. And the reality is that this shows a lack of respect for Christianity by airing this on Easter Sunday. But, I mean, there's so many more issues that come out of this. I mean, the copyright infringement that this, what are they called? Whatever this religion's called. I reckon the estate of L. Ron Hubbard's going to be onto them. Clearly, she's been reading his books. And I think the Pastafarians might be onto them because, you know, they've got the monopoly on ridiculous religions, and climate change is already a religion. They didn't need to create another one.
It is a truly bizarre thing, Darren, to put to air. And they knew what they were doing, the ABC, when they decided to air this episode on Easter Sunday. I mean, they could have aired it on any other Sunday, and they chose to do it on Easter Sunday. You can't tell me that that's not a coincidence.
Agree. I mean, public broadcasters should absolutely be a forum for diverse views and, you know, challenge ideas, absolutely. But timing matters, and fairness means turning a lens on all faiths. You know, as well as being a forum for diverse views, public broadcasters like the AB should not be kind of theatre for ideologically convenient ones. You know, there's a real difference, I think, a subtle difference between programming that questions belief systems and content that sort of seems to target belief systems and faiths. And I think the timing was pretty poor. It's really important to be even-handed and balanced. And as you said again, and I've seen this before with the ABC, Christianity comes off second best every time.
It just feels safe for them to do it, I think, and unfortunately that seems to be where we are. But look, if we can all say fair's fair and you can do it during Islamic festivals, etc., I wouldn't have a problem. But something tells me that's not going to happen anytime soon. Darren Davidson, Stephen Senate, Empo, thank you so much for your time.